First thing I want to say, it will be kind of odd, but the truth is this. I'm not supposed to be up here. I'm not supposed to be up here for many reasons. I don't have the credentials to be doing this up here. I actually don't have the education or the background that one would have to come up here and speak to you guys. I actually think about back in school, like my grades, I told you guys before, my grammar. Currently, I don't speak properly, like sharp. My wife, her speech is like perfect, on point, and she always gets on me about certain things. But I have a list of reasons why I'm not supposed to be up here. But besides God giving me the authority to be up here, besides that, one reason that I'm up here is because of Pastor Art. My plan when I was talking, I was like, I'm not going to cry. I don't even know what I'm thinking about that, but it's coming to me. One reason I'm here is because I connected with Pastor Art. And I took a risk. I said, you know what? I'm going to go on this feeling. I don't know what it was, but looking back, it was God. And I went into his office and I said, hey, listen, give me a list of important things that I should learn in a year about the Bible, the most important things. He says, yeah, I could do that, but I'm here every week. Why don't you just come meet me? I don't have to just give you this list. You can come and meet me. And I spoke about this before, and once that happened, I have to say, every message you've heard from me, I'm humbled and honored that some of you come to me and say, look, God, look, you changed my perspective on something. That word you gave really touched the situation I was going through right now. That message, it really hit my heart. I needed it. I'm humbled and honored because none of it was me. I'm not supposed to be up here. You look at my life, I'm not supposed to be up here. But the foundations that God allowed Pastor Art to put inside of me, anything that you see good in me, God used him for me up here to be able to deliver. And so we decided, hey, you know what? Let's meet up once a week on Fridays and let's begin. So my first time meeting with him, listen, he's taught me so many things about this. I mean, from how the Old Testament is structured, because honestly, I was scared of the Old Testament because it was so big and it was like mysterious, but he was able to break that down for me, to even strategies on like, hey, I want you to take a chapter and forget the title that's on here. Make your own title. Like he taught me so many things, but there was one thing that he taught me that set the course for everything. And the one thing was this. He sat me down. He said, listen, Jag. He didn't call me Jag, but this is how I talk to myself. He said, listen, whatever you do, however you study this, don't forget this key thing. And he said it just like this. Study the whole, examine the part, relate the part back to the whole. And let me break it down. He's saying, listen, whatever you do, no matter what, study the whole, like get a whole understanding of the word in general, like just what God is doing as a whole. Then he says, whenever you go into a chapter, a verse, a book, I don't care what it is, dissect that, but make sure you bring it back to the whole. And so why that's important is because it's so dangerous that the religions that come out from this word. Because why? He was trying to teach me, put things in context. Because it's so easy to take things out of context. We already know the many things that come out, the different beliefs, different denominations, different religions, like things that are just like, whoa, that's out. Like, how did you even get that from here? Yet people did. I personally know about 2 to 3 people who used to attend this church that because of other religions that were created from taking this out of context, They influence those people, and they're gone from Christianity. They don't even have a relationship with Christ. Just because, why? They took this whole religion, took this out of context. And so why I'm saying that, I'm trying to explain the danger that happens when we take things out of context. I want to give an example. I was reading a book last year. It's about marriage, because I was reading a lot of leadership books, but God told me, like, listen, you need to work on your marriage too. So start reading some books on marriage. So one book I read, it was just talking about what makes a marriage successful and what makes a marriage fail, like going to a divorce. And what they would do in this book, they would talk about different scenarios of relationships and situations that happen. And there was one story that kind of stuck with me that I can never forget. So we know that in marriage and even relationships, if I could get some water, even in relationships, one could be thinking like, hey, everything's cool. Like, oh man, I'm loving life. Everything is dope. While the other one is in hell. And then one day they just say, hey, boom, boom, I'm done. It's over. And the other person's like, yo, what? Wait, what just happened? Thank you, Lem. Appreciate that. Poland Spring, give me that check. So, relationships, I've heard many stories like this. So in this story, a husband and wife, they're sitting down watching TV. And they're just their regular evening thing, they're just watching TV. And then the husband says, I need space. And so now, obviously, if it were the other way around, it would be different. But because it's this way around, of course, women, like, all these things are just flooding your mind because of what he just said and what he desires. And so the feelings are coming up like, all right, how do we get to this point? How do we get to this point of this person feeling like that? Was it the arguments? Was it because I was nagging too much? Was it because he was ignoring me? Was it the miscommunication? Was it the finances? Like, what were all these things that were happening? What caused us to get to this place now that it would surface that way? And she's thinking to herself, and listen, we got kids, and I don't want, how are we going to explain to the kids and make them understand that not all marriages work out? They didn't plan for this. They didn't plan for it to happen where, look, I'm going to have kids and they're going to have parents that are separated. So she says to him, listen, we need to tell the kids together, and we need to make them understand this has nothing to do with the kids. Because that's the first things kids think is like, oh, it was my fault. I wasn't worthy. And she stops, and he looks at her and says, what? My arm was falling asleep. I need space on the couch. So I'm like, yo, context is key. I was dying when I read that because I'm like, she went totally a different route. But it made sense because of the words that he said triggered something, but she took it out of context. It triggered something. She went on a storyline that was full of pain, rejection, and fear. That's the storyline that she was on. And that's the dangers of taking things out of context. So, yes, back to Pastor Art showing me, listen, this is how you study this. This is how you make sure you don't take things out of context. That's great for the Bible, but let's put that aside right now. I don't think we do that enough in our lives. In the things that we're going through, in the situations that we're in right now, we could easily end up just like that wife, taking our current circumstance out of context and it being full of fear, pain, and rejection. This is why God is calling us to connect to the Holy Spirit so that He can put us in the storyline that God intended for everything that you're going through. For every situation that you're in, when you don't understand it, you can't just be in that part. You have to connect it back to the whole. What's God's storyline in your story, in your situation right now. Do not take it out of context. So I want to show an example of this. If Lem, you can help me out bringing up the board. When I think about, when most of us think about stuff and things are boggling our minds and stress, the first word that comes to me is chaos. Just life being full of chaos and things going on, and this is out of order, that's out of order, they're thinking this about me, I can't handle this, there's too many things, there's not enough time, there's no motivation, like just full of chaos. And so I look at that, and God's shown me like our lives are almost like a picture. And what I want to show is the things that are happening in our situations and in our lives right now, where you can come in and like this situation over here is just off, like, and then this is happening there, and these things are going on over here, and I don't know, this is going on over here. Can I get somebody else example, like a volunteer, real quick, somebody help me, please, thank you. Come on, you too. And just an example of a part of how chaos will look to you. And okay, you're going through. We will pray. There's prayer in the back. Thank you, Joanna. Thanks, you can sit down. And then you can give me just a mark or whatever of what chaos is for you in the moment. Yeah, just whatever. You guys are going through. Round of applause. So, you see? And God says, shut it down. I don't care what you're going through. So check this out, guys. We look at this. This is straight up, it's ugly. It's ugly. In fact, if I were to, whatever they did and I did, I could look at my life and I could easily see it this way. It's just straight up ugly. And what's the thing is, well, it kind of annoys me that when I talk to God about this stuff, when I look at this, he would just say, no, this is beautiful to me. And it's frustrating because, God, listen, I'm an artist. You gave me the talent. I do graphic design. I do all these things. I'm sorry, this is ugly. This is not aligned correctly. What is this? Why is this even here? What does this mean? What is going on over here, right? And what's annoying is, again, he says, listen, this is beautiful to me. And that's the frustration. Although there's like just knowing that, okay, God, you still love me. God, you still have plans for me, all these things. But it is frustrating to look and take a view at this and see all the chaos. But again, what God is trying to say, look, stop looking at this with your eyes. Start looking at this with my eyes, because I see beauty. Thank you, Lem. So what I'm loving about today's message, and that's why I titled it Storyline, is for you guys to be able to see. Oh, you're good. You're good. What I want to and be able to see is that a storyline has a path full of its own stuff. When I think of movies, I love watching movies and just the creations of movies and every aspect. Most of the music I listen to, it's not even hip-hop, it's not even pop or whatever's out there. It's mainly movie scores. I will listen to the original score for movies because they create emotion in me. And I choose the ones that I want to create a positive emotion. And I spoke about this before, that movies, depending on the tone of the music, can set your state of mind, can set you in a course. Movies are created. They create the scenes to say, listen, this is how I want them to feel. And so your storyline has stuff full of that. And so that's why it's so dangerous to, hey, listen, am I in the Holy Spirit's storyline? Or am I in a storyline that I stepped into or that the world influenced me into? So I want to show an example. As they pull up this next picture, speaking of movies, I don't know how many of you guys saw these two movies. Spider-Man, Homecoming, anybody? Couple people. Moana, anybody? I'm shocked right now that Pastor Art raised his hand. Because I would have been a betting man and put money on the fact that he saw none of these, because one, he hates superhero movies, and two, he hates animated movies. So it was like, Pastor Art, you can leave for now. I'll tell you to come back in for this part. So listen, these two movies actually have something in common that I want to talk about. And it's mainly about Peter Parker, who's Spider-Man, and not necessarily Moana, but Maui. So in this next photo, you'll see them two together. And Spider-Man has this suit. Maui is holding his hook. Now, just a little bit about this, specifically this Spider-Man movies, because there's like hundreds of Spider-Man movies. This suit that he's wearing was actually given to him. Similar to Maui, this hook was actually given to him because he's a shapeshifter. He can change into different animals and different things. And Spider-Man, obviously, he's so popular, you should know that, superhuman ability, strength, climbing on walls, spider senses, the whole nine. But what's different about this that they connect with is that they both received something from someone else and it was given to them. And in the next image, you'll see Peter Parker had an old suit, right? On the left over here, this is what he originally put on. He just grabbed some hoodies and whatever, put something on together. But that's the suit that Tony Stark, which is Iron Man, gave to him. And why that's important is because it's not just a suit to hide his identity, to hide that he's Peter Parker. No, there was like technology and crazy advancements and the ability to have like radar scanning. The suit was talking to him. All these things that Spider-Man, Peter Parker didn't normally have, but it was like an enhanced version of Spider-Man. And going back to the other image, like I said with Maui, he was strong and everything, but he only could shape shift when he had his hook that was actually given to him by someone else. And so why I bring this up is, in that movie with Spider-Man, Tony Stark, Peter Parker gets in trouble with Tony Stark about something, right? And he's like, listen, you know what? That's it. Give me the suit back. Give me the suit back. You're done. And as I'm watching this, it starts clicking to me. Peter Parker starts saying, no. I need this suit. I need this suit. I'm nothing without this suit. And here's what Tony said that really hit me. He said, if you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it. That doesn't make sense. He just told you he's nothing without it, and you're telling me not to have it. I'm going to be nothing. But we know where he's going. He says, if you're nothing without this suit, you shouldn't have it. Maui had the same situation. He's in a battle with his hook, fighting the bad guy, and it almost breaks apart because Moana decided to go a route that he said, no, we shouldn't go this route, and he had to protect her with his hook, and it almost got damaged. It almost was destroyed, and you can see he's upset and mad, and Moana's like, listen, we can still go back and do something. He's like, listen, I am nothing without my hook. And what are you talking about? You're nothing without your hook. You can say, I am nothing without my hook. And I go back to what Tony said. If you feel like you're nothing without these things, you shouldn't have it. See, the problem is they took something that was given to them that was for good, and over time, it started jumbling out of context. It started being something that was their identity. And see, that's the dangerous thing. It's like that was supposed to be good. That was supposed to be fruitful. That was supposed to be something that allows people to benefit from as you save and do. But you got it twisted. You let it connect to your identity. And that's another form of taking something out of context. Because they allowed those things to be the pillars that held them up. But when it was shot down, they fell. Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up personally. this is something very personal for me, this lesson. In fact, today, this message is totally different from all the messages I've done in the past at this church, and for this very reason, and I'm going to explain. I also had a suit, and I also had a hook that I eventually, after a while, took in the wrong context when it came to messages up here. So, me and God, maybe a couple years ago, started crafting this, and I spoke to you guys a little bit about it, but not in this context. Started crafting this that I would wake up early and spend time with him. Early, 4 o'clock in the morning, and just spend time with him. And oh man, it was, listen, I wish I could explain in words how fulfilling that was. Like, I didn't want to go to work. I just wanted to continue studying and seeing God show me stuff. And it wasn't about seeing stuff to come up here and speak. It was just the fact that he was revealing stuff in myself and showing me, opening my eyes. It was this intimacy that was so tight that I love. Complete quiet, just me. No one's awake. Almost the whole world is sleeping. It was just an awesome feeling. I mean, there was times where I would take a walk, 4 in the morning. Tiff hated that because she was worried about me just walking amongst people in Clark and 4 in the morning. And for me, I just found so much joy and peace and intimacy with God in those times. So after a while studying and studying and studying, I would see God say, hey, right there, hold on. The church needs to hear this one. I know I taught you all these other things, but the church needs to hear this one. And so every time coming up here, it was that. It was like, oh, okay, this is what God gave me in those times. And man, I felt so close. And then June 26, 2018 happened. The birth of beautiful Bella. And when that happened, I looked at the suit, I looked at the hook, 4 in the morning, and that was just thrown out the window real quick. And sometimes I feel like Bella's laughing at me. It's like, you really think that 4 in the morning was going to stay? Let's be real, bro. Let's be real. So I'm telling you, if you've parented infants 24/7, or if you're parenting them now, there is no 4 in the morning. There is no slot. There is no walking in the silence outside, listening to worship and God. There is none of that. I mean, listen, I still try to fight it. I try to be like, I'm waking up 4 in the morning. You know, God's going to allow her to sleep. She's not going to wake up. Each time I do that, I'm like, all right, creeping. She starts crying. And I'm like, oh, man. And then either she's sleeping late. It's just a totally different world. And so now it comes time for me to speak a message. It comes time for me to come to this day, right? And I'm preparing. I'm like, God, I don't have my suit. I don't have my hook. What do we do now? We had a formula. We had a system. We chill. I get it in peace and quiet, and it flows in me. I write it down, and we good, right? But this time it's just lack of sleep, tiredness, like here's the bottle, like it's just totally different. I'm drained. Tiff is 10 million times drained. Like, it is exhausting. So where is my suit? Where is my hook? And God says, Jag, son, you took that out of context. I gave you that for a good reason. But you started making it your identity. Like, that was the only way I can talk to you? You think that's the only way I'm limited to give you a word for our church? You think that time slot is where it needs to be in order for me to speak to you? Jag, get in the right storyline. I speak through everything if you're willing to find it. I don't just speak in that time of resting and praying and solitude. I don't just speak in that. I speak through your life 24/7. You just got to be willing to hear me. And so all these things started making me learn that, hold up, wait, so the goal is not a daily time slot that I'm disciplined, that I have strict discipline and I stick with it and I don't let anything get in the way. That's not the goal. I mean, if you would have told me, anybody in here, yo, every day I pray from this time and that time, I study the word from this time and that time, I would look at that, I'm like, oh, snap, yo, that's dope, respect. But God's saying, listen, that's not the goal. The goal is who you are in the midst of your day. That time slot, although it's great and it helps prime your day or it helps set your day up, that's great. But that was never the goal, Jag. You took it out of context. I need you to hear me as you're up here right now. I need you to hear me as you're going to the grocery store. I need you to hear me and learn from me as you're walking in the midst of something, or if you're doing your taxes at H&R Block, or if you're doing an email. Like, I need you to hear me everywhere. That's the goal. And I was taking it out of context. So I called it pillars for them, because when it's knocked down, it's destroyed, they don't have anything to stand on. And that was my problem. I used it as a pillar, and when it was knocked down, I wasn't allowing myself to figure out, well, am I in the right storyline? Should I be jumping to the different storyline? And that's why connecting with the Holy Spirit is important. Because the Holy Spirit says, Jag, listen, you're off. You're in the wrong storyline. I need to pull you back to the whole point of this. I remember Bella goes to the daycare here, and some of you guys know I work upstairs as well. And so I would come and drop her off, get her ready, go to drop her off in daycare, come back, get back upstairs on time to get ready for the day and work, right? Or if I have enough time, like if I come here early, drop her off, everything's early, ooh, I got 20 more minutes, let me spend time with God. And that's what I would try to do. But there was one day that was a little different. It was a little different. I'm driving, and I'm like, something told me, listen, I'm early. I'm just going to spend time with Bella. Like, I'm not just going to drop her right away so I could get to back and maybe spend time with God or whatever. I'm just going to spend some time with Bella. So I came here. I said, hey, Bella, let's just sit in the back, completely empty in here. And we're just chilling. And I'm like, and she starts pointing around, and she points, and I'm like, oh, what are you pointing at? And it looks like that area over there where the sound stuff is. So I'm like, all right, cool, come on, Bella. I'm going to pick you up. Let's go see what's going on over there. And I walk up the steps to the back, and she's just looking around, and I look down on the floor. I look down on the floor, and it's my laptop charger that I didn't realize I left there on Sunday. And had I not gone in there, I would not know when my laptop charger is, meaning I can't do my work, meaning it's shot, it's dead, and I would have spent the day searching for it, not even thinking that it would be over there. But because I put my priorities straight, and because I engaged with what God said, here's what's priority, He was able to guide me. Listen, I still got you. Don't worry about the work. Just focus on me. Focus on the things that I'm calling you to, and I will provide what you need. Using Bella to point and go up there, I'm like, it's messy back there. Like, why would I take a kid back there? It's not a place for kids to play, but she pointed there, I went, and God guided me and said, hey, you forgot something. But had I dropped her off, went upstairs, tried to pray and worship, the battery would have died. Dang, I don't got my worship music. This day is messed up. I can't even work. But God used that moment to say, Jag, don't take your life out of context. Don't jump in the wrong storyline to get things done, to get things moving. Like, stay in the things that I'm calling you to, and I want you to engage with your daughter at this moment. And it could be something else later, because what He's calling us to is to have a listening, tuned ear to the Holy Spirit as we go. Because you don't know where He's like, all right, hold on, I know you normally go this way. Hold on, the storyline is going this way. I got something over there for you. I know it's weird, I know it's not normal, but stay on this storyline. One thing that God's also told me about context is this. Quiet is very uncomfortable. A lot of things may be going through your mind. What the heck is going on? Why is he so quiet? Why is he not talking? Did he get nervous? Did he forget what he was supposed to be doing? What's going on here? So it's very uncomfortable. It's even uncomfortable for me to demonstrate that because I'm like, I want to get things going, but quiet. Silence. That's uncomfortable. And so I know that's happening here, but I know you guys feel that same thing in your lives at times. Quiet. Silence. You don't hear anything from God. Why am I still at this job? When are you going to bump me up? When am I going to get a promotion? Why did this happen to me? Why would you allow that? Why are you not giving me answers? Why don't we have enough for this? Why can't we have it just like this way and not this way? What's going on? Why are you silent, God? Why do I have this problem in my health? Why can't I provide the way I want to for my kid? Why can't I get through this door, this opportunity? Why can't I? And then you keep hearing silence. And it's frustrating. And I speak that with experience. It's annoying. It's a fog. That's like, come on, can you show me something? And God reminds me, and he spoke to me. Just like I said, he wants to speak to you in different ways. He spoke to that. Marvel came out with a movie, Infinity War, last year. Everybody knows about it because it's been promoted so much for a long time. And there was a scene in there with Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange, at this moment, he's looking at all the possible outcomes of defeating the enemy. And he says, listen, out of 14 million plus outcomes, scenarios, only one of them we win. All the rest of them we lose. I think that's just crazy. And so in the next part, the next movie, Iron Man's asking Doctor Strange, hey, if there's only one scenario, don't you think it's about time to let us know what that is so we can make sure it happens? And my wife, she loves this part. We talk about it. What Dr. Strange says, he says, if I told you, it wouldn't happen. So what that's saying is, if I told you, it wouldn't happen. The silence, the quiet, produces something in you so you can do an action or reaction or change something within you. But if I tell you, I can't get that produced in you. And so the silence that we have, the silence that we go through, we're taking it out of context. Jag, you took it out of context that I wasn't speaking or revealing it in a way that you wanted. I was trying to produce something in you that I only can get, that I only can happen, that it only can have that effect in silence. Everybody, you guys got something you're going through at one degree or another. Pastor Art just talked about it. At one time in your life, you're doubting. Another times you may be okay, but you're going through something else. We're constantly going through stuff. And what I'm trying to say is God is saying, my silence is not saying that I'm a bad father. Don't jump into that storyline like the wife did. That's not who I am to you. I demonstrated my love for you. I took my son and I crushed him for you. My silence is not something that contradicts that. I still love you. I'm doing it for you. The verse that always comes back to me is Jeremiah 29:11. And that's just a classic one. And I'm always going to keep this in my heart. 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. If we took our situations and put it in that context, we would think totally different from what the storyline is currently saying. We would take it and think differently about how God is viewing us, what God's love is to us. I have a personal story, but it's not directly my own personal story, but it's about my brother Max. And I asked him if it was okay, if I could talk about him. It's funny, he didn't even say, well, what are you going to talk about? He just said, I trust you, go ahead. And so, even though there's frustrations in my life, I see frustrations in the people around me that I love, and he's an example. And it's just like, man, God, and this is me talking to God, he has the talent. Listen, when Black Panther dropped, right, we found out Ryan Coogler, a black director, young guy, did it, pop, 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 pop. People were hitting Max up in the industry talking about, yo, man, like, you got the same skills. That easily could have been you. You know how frustrating that is? I can't even speak for him. I can't even sit in his shoes, but just looking on the outside, you know how frustrating that is? To know that you got the talent, you got the years of experience, you got the knowledge, you got all those things. And yet, God, why are you not opening up for somebody like that? You did it for someone else. He's been serving you. He loves you. He's been attending church all his life. He was raised in you, and he has a relationship with you, yet you still are not opening up the doors the way I, Jack, think you should open it up for my brother. And I'm frustrated. And then God says, Jag, that's not what you wanted. I said, what are you talking about? Of course I want the best for my brother. He has the skills. He's pursuing it now. He should be able to get it. He just needs some help and open doors. He's like, listen, go back to when you were in high school, Jag. Do you remember when Max was in college? Do you remember how worried you were because you didn't have connection with him? You didn't know how he was doing spiritually? You remember you have no idea any context of his relationship with God because you're not able to see him because he lived in Philadelphia. Do you remember that time that you prayed like never before? I mean, I got down on my knees. He doesn't even know this. And I was praying hard. I was praying so hard because I love him so much. And I'm saying, God, whatever goes down, I said you make sure he has a relationship with you, that you guide him, that you protect him, that you hold him. Because I love him. When we grew up, my father wasn't around, man. He played a role in my life, and I want the best for him. I want the best for him. And Father, I want you to make sure he has a relationship with you. And he reminds me, like, Jack, that's what you prayed. If I gave him everything we think he should get, he wouldn't have the relationship with God that he has right now. He wouldn't be connected to me and depending on me as he is right now, every moment. What would happen is if I would have just gave it all to him, you would have thought everything was all good, but he would have probably started depending on, like, man, everything's flowing my way. I don't need God in that deep way. I may need, I know I need God for certain things, but I don't know how it would have been. And then Jeremiah 29:11. Jack, this is what you prayed. You took what I'm doing right now out of context. Connect back to the Holy Spirit. Get back to the storyline. I answered your prayer, Jag. And I am still answering your prayer because he is a man of God. And I know you love him. And I know you care for him. And I heard you. You prayed like that, like you never prayed before. And I heard you. You almost looked at me as a bad father because you almost jumped in the wrong storyline. Last week, worship team did a song called Reckless Love. It's a very powerful song. I'm pretty sure most of you know it. And worship was like moving, boom, boom. I'm like feeling it. I'm like, man, maybe I should have spoke last week because I was feeling it. I was just ready. But God was just moving, right? And then even Khadijah came up and said, listen, this song is almost like a reminder of what God was doing in her because she was talking about how shame was put on her name. And that despite all of that, despite of what was established on earth about that name, God still came down, reached down in the deeps, in the dark, and used it for his glory. So that touched me when she was saying that. And it made me want to look at the lyrics of what they were singing with Reckless Love. And here's the lyrics. There's no shadow you won't light up. Mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down. Lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I am found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it, yet still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Do you guys hear the lyrics? That song moves us. Those lyrics move us. We don't get those lyrics unless the scenario is created for God to show how far he would go. We don't get that song unless he shows you, let me show you how far I go. Yes, you're going through that. Yes, it's deep, it's dark, it's hard, it's painful. But in that time, I'm able to now show you I am reckless in my love. I will come down all the way to that deep part to you. And I don't think we understand that. We don't get these songs without the scenario, without the situation, without the brokenness, without the pain. The brokenness and pain is a part of us so that God can be the one to piece us together, so that God can show you, that's how far I'll go for you. It's to reveal it within inside of us. It's to take us out of the storyline and bring it into him. That's how much I love you. Another song we were just singing today, Oceans. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. How do you know that if it's not a deep, deep situation? How do you know how far his grace will go? But it goes as deep as the waters and beyond. But he needs to demonstrate that in you so you can see that. There was one movie that came out sometime last year or early this year called Alita. And in this movie, just to make it real quick, Alita is like almost like a cyborg. Like she's part human, but yet she was made as a machine. And so she was rebuilt as a girl. Like a doctor found her, rebuilt her, and she's just like, oh, wow. But she doesn't remember anything about her past, anything. But she's exploring the world like, wow, this is all beautiful. And so as she's going through life, bad things starts to happen. Just the evilness in that world starts to happen. And what she realizes when she's encountering something evil, she begins to start doing some crazy move, kung fu, everything in the midst of the danger. And what I love that really hit me when I was watching this is that as she did that, she saw flashbacks of who she was. And one thing she said that hit me the most is that she wanted to go out of the comfort, find the danger, because in there is where I'll be able to find out who I am. She was willing to release it all because she was hungry enough to find out, who am I? I'm willing to step out of this. It's not like she's like, you're supposed to step out of your comfort zone to go. No, it's like, is that where I discover who I am? Is that the fire that I get to discover who I am? Is that the fire that Jesus somehow pops up out of nowhere when he wasn't supposed to be there? Is that the fire where me being bound just comes off and the fire doesn't touch me? Is that it? Because if I could find out more of who he is inside of me, I could find out who I am. Are we willing to allow the discomforts, allow the fire, allow all those things to happen in our lives so we can find out who he is in our lives and who he's created us to be? Which storyline are you willing to pursue when it comes to your situations right now? Another song by Hillsong United called Love is War. And I got that on heavy rotation right now. I think David got me on that song. Me and David have a little thing going on where if we find a worship song before the other, we'll send it to the person and we'll say, don't forget who got you on this, though. Don't forget who got you on this. So I hear him listening to the song and I'm like, oh man, this thing is dope. This thing is dope. And there was a line in there that hit me. It says, you came and died, but the grave was borrowed. You came, you died, but the grave was borrowed. And what God was telling me is like, yo, don't get it twisted. Yeah, the grave is a part of the story, but it's not for me to keep. Yea, the graves are a part of your story, but it's not for you to keep. You don't have ownership of that. Don't try to own that. It's just borrowed. Because in a couple of days, what did Jesus do? Boom. That was just part of the story that set me up. And God is like, listen, I'm doing the same thing with you. I'm creating, scenarios are happening. It's borrowed. You're not meant to stay there. You're not meant to hold on to that hurt. You're not meant to stay alone forever. That's just for the story. If you allow me to put yourself in the storyline that has the context within me, you would then see I'm raising you out of that. For a bigger reason. That's the grave. Listen, when you look at movie posters, and if I were to show you the movie poster about Spider-Man or Moana, and in the Spider-Man movie poster, you saw a coffee cup, said Spider-Man. You would be like, what in the world does this coffee cup have to do with Spider-Man? And yet, that's what we do. We take our attention and put it here when the main thing is that he's doing some bigger things, and you taking the storyline and putting it on something that's not relevant. Yeah, it's a part of the story. I'm pretty sure he sipped a cup of coffee somewhere or somebody, but that's not the main thing. There's something else coming. Connect with the Holy Spirit to stay on the right storyline, to keep things in context. One thing God's showing me, like the posture that we take is almost like, Father, listen, I know you can do this or that. The enemy is attacking me here. They're attacking me through these people. They're attacking me in this area. They're attacking me in my mind. They're attacking me in my loneliness. They're attacking me in my finances, all those things. Can you come in, intervene, and block them and stop them from attacking so I can be set free? And so God is like, yeah, I hear that. I hear all those things that are happening to you. Question. Those things that are happening to you, what's the Holy Spirit doing with it? I get the enemy. Yeah, I know. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's doing that. But question, storyline over here. What is the Holy Spirit doing with those things that you're going through? So God is trying to change our mindset. Shift from the context of the enemy is the enemy this, enemy that, to what's the Holy Spirit doing in this difficulty? What's he trying to do in me? Because what I believe is that if we were to take ourselves from focusing on what the enemy is doing and focusing on what the Holy Spirit is doing, we begin to get back on the right context. We begin to hear the Holy Spirit more, better, stronger, moving through us. So we could be guided in places that we need to be in. The big thing that hit me was like the cross, the crucifixion. Because we forget, it's easy to forget. I forget. Fully man, fully God. Not half and half. Full. The crucifixion. Whoa, how did you do that? And I think that it's because Jesus lived in context while he was here on earth. Everything he did was living. Everything he saw, everything that came at him, he viewed it in context as a whole, saying the context of this storyline, the context of this cross, the context of this torture, me being beaten, shed blood, that context is all about restoring the people I love back to me. So the cross didn't look like this evil thing that a husband was saying, I need space. No, the cross looked like, oh, I get to get connected back to the ones I love. That's what the cross meant now. So that's why he's able to take things in context, because he's always connected with the Holy Spirit. He's been guided, and he can see that in context, and he's calling us to do the same. So the question is, it's difficult. That's why it's all about growth. How do we know we're in the wrong storyline? How do we know that we're not in the right context of what God is doing? And there's a couple things that he kind of showed me. The first thing I want to talk about is something I heard in an interview that God then connected to my mind about how he works. Michael Jordan, everybody knows his name, probably the most known athlete of all time. You look at this image, these are all the rings he won. It doesn't even show the MVPs. It doesn't even show the finals MVPs, the all-star MVPs, the scoring titles, the defensive player of the year, like just a long list of stuff. Olympic gold medals, like continuing on and on and on. And he said something that hit me. He said, if there was one thing that I could pass down onto my kids, it would be this. Does anybody, besides Eric, because Eric, we like the same things, he might know. Does anybody know what Michael Jordan said, with all those accomplishments, with all those achievements, what he said he would pass, if he could take that out of him, what he has, and give it to them? Anybody want to take a guess? Just shout it out. Work ethic. That was my first one. Work ethic for sure. I thought that's what he was going to get at too. Anybody else? Failure. Yes, I see what you're saying. I kind of like that. Almost near there. One more. Huh? Faith. That's a little close too. So what he said was this. If I could give, out of all the things I accomplished, if I could give my kids something, it's to be optimistic. And I thought, me and Pastor R was on the same wavelength. Yo, work ethic. Yo, this is what you got to do. First person in the gym, last person to leave in practice. I mean, blood, sweat, and tears. If somebody else is in the gym, you don't leave until they leave. Like all those crazy things. I'm thinking, yeah, this is some good stuff. This is stuff I want, man. This is stuff I want in my life. So I'm thinking he's going to say that, but he says, no, to be optimistic. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he breaks it down. He says, this sense of me seeing things for the better is what I feel fueled me to push and push and push and push and push in basketball. Because I always tried to take a situation and turn it for the good. What does that sound like? That sounds like Jeremiah 29:11 when it comes to us. The way you help yourself to realize, am I in the right storyline? Am I in the right context? If you would always view whatever you're going through, that God has a plan in mind for it. That God has something good coming out of it. That God is doing something. I don't know what it is, but he's doing something. Another thing that God showed me that would help us to keep things in context and stay in the right storyline is something I saw in like television shows, crime shows. I love that wall that they have when they're trying to figure out and investigate. Okay, cool. In the next image, you'll see that they'll have like pictures and information, lines being drawn here and there, and like, what's going on in this situation? And they're looking at it and investigating. Okay, cool, okay. I think we could get this guy, this and that and all that. And God was saying, listen, we need to become students of what God is doing in our lives. We need to begin to take the evidence, the past, this and that of what God's doing, connect them, because they know something happened, someone did it. We need to find out who it is. And if we would look at our situations knowing that, no, this happened, that happened, but God did something good within it. He's doing something good within it. I'm going to find it. No matter what I have to do, by any means, I'm going to find what God is doing in my life. I'm going to become a student of what God is doing. Why? Because we need to connect to the Holy Spirit often, more and more enough so that we can be able to see, oh, wow, that's what you're doing. Thank you for showing me that. Take me out of this storyline. Take me out of this fear, this pain, this rejection of how I'm viewing this story, and bring me over here, Holy Spirit, so I can see you for the good Father that you are, so I can speak to people in the right context, so I can find things in the midst of my path. Father, I'm asking that you will open their minds to see that you are a loving Father and that whatever they're going through, that you would show them that it's out of love. One thing I want to show you guys, I'm going to revert to the photo. Lem, if you could grab that. And it's just going back to that chaos, and I know a lot of you are going through that now. I mean, I know people personally who's going through things like that right now. And what my heart is that with everything in you, even when the emotions are low, even with the sleeplessness, even with the pain and sorrow, that you still can't figure it out, it still hurts there, it's still something that's painful. Even with all that, that God, you would show me and remind me that you are doing something. Because in the midst of all that chaos that God was doing within you, that God was showing earlier, that we wrote down here in the red and all that, God took it and made it into a better image. This is what he saw that whole time. We didn't see it because we just saw the scribbles and the things that we are going through in life. And this is what he was trying to see and show you, no, this is what I see. Let me tell you what happened here. I called up Bo. Why did I call up Bo for this? Because I knew him and I trusted him. I said, Bo, listen, I don't know, if this is going to be crazy or not, but I know you could do it. And I'm going to say, listen, I'm just going to draw scribbling lines, and I'm going to have other people draw some scribbling lines. What I would like you to do, Bo, is to go back there and make each and every pain and scribbled line into an image. And that's because I knew him and I trusted him, and I knew from the get-go, I didn't have to look at this, it's going to be made into something, and that's what God is asking you to do. Is take all that stuff, all that pain, hurt and sorrow. I understand we didn't see it at first, but trust that he's drawing something.